After the public mockery Australia and its leaders received after Prince Philip was infamously knighted earlier this year, the absurdity of having a British monarch for Australia's head of state has never been more evident. For a government aiming to make Australia a republic, the method to do this is essential, as to ensure that public support is high for a republic and to make sure that a future referendum on a republic is likely to succeed. For Australia to become a republic, the implementation needs to use two basic procedures. These are abolishing and replacing monarchist symbols before any referendum, and having the referendum implemented in two phases, with a non-binding referendum on the preferred model of republic being followed by the constitutional referendum placing the most popular model against the current constitutional monarchy. This method is not only practical, but can also achieve widespread public legitimacy. An important part of this process is removing all monarchist symbolism, excluding that which must be removed by constitutional amendment before the first plebiscite is undertaken. This is because changing these symbols will place the republic at the forefront of public discussion for an extended period before the referendum, and it will simplify the referendum debate. As the monarchist opposition will inevitably raise cost issues, for instance, it will cost so much to change everything and it will be expensive to remove the Queen from the currency. This tactic will make these arguments less valid, as the changes have already been implemented. The following are examples of symbols with monarchist elements on them. The shield on the coat of arms, which currently has state symbols, but using symbols, for instance, the British Cross of St George, or the crown of King Edward, or the British Lion. However, these symbols are not representative of contemporary Australia and imply British dominance. These also includes the flags of Australia, which have the British flag on them, for instance the Navy and Air Force flag, and also the current national flag, but which I'll discuss later. It's also emblems of crowns or other references to the British royal family on them, for instance the emblems of the Australian Federal Police and the Australian Army, which both have crowns on them. Also, there's the issue of institutions that have royal names on them, for instance the Royal Australian Air Force or the Royal Australian Mint. Throughout this process, the national flag will need to be treated separately, and emphasised as such, given that changing other flags will raise the suspicion that the national flag will be changed at the same time. A tactic that can counter this is saying that the national flag will only be discussed at a further point in the future. Alternatively, the flag could be changed earlier, but this would mean delaying the plebiscites on the model and the republic by at least a couple of years. The two-part method proposed would have two votes. The first is a non-binding plebiscite, where voters would rank their preferred model of republic from a list of 4 to 6 alternatives. The second vote would have the most popular model in this vote go against the current constitutional monarchy in a binding referendum. This idea draws inspiration from the current New Zealand flag change referendum, which initiated by John Key, which first plans to have a public vote on between a series of designs, and the most popular one of these series of alternative New Zealand flags go against the current New Zealand flag in a second referendum. This process has two main benefits. One, having the population choose among preferred models, there is no possibility of the first vote having a negative vote against it. Thus, there is only one point of potential failure in the process, being the constitutional referendum. This is in contrast to the model proposed by the Australian Republican movement, which offers a two-stage referendum. Firstly, they have a non-binding plebiscite asking, do you want to become a republic? This would be followed by the binding referendum on the particular model. However, this process has one major problem in that it has 2 points of failure, meaning that even if the non-binding plebiscite fails, the debate would be put off for another 2 decades. Even though it's a non-binding plebiscite, it would still mean that even the concept of a republic would lose legitimacy, as opposed to a particular model, for instance. Therefore, the model chosen would also have some legitimacy as being the most popular among the Australian people, as it would be the most popular by this referendum process. This would give room to counter the politician's republic argument that could be used by monarchists in a future campaign. My vision for a republic, therefore, is based on having a pragmatic transition of symbols, followed by the non-binding plebiscite on a model, and lastly, the constitutional referendum. This approach would raise public discussion of a republic throughout the whole transition process, most likely over several years, and simplify the issue to be presented to the wider public. This method is the most likely to succeed, as it is both practical and capable of achieving broader public legitimacy.